Aloha, everybody. Welcome to the Hawaiiverse podcast, a podcast that supports local by kanaka attacking every time after eating some Ono Hawaiian food. I'm your host, Kamaka Diaz, and I avoid eating Hawaiian food before every podcast, or else I would not make it through this thing awake. Before I start daydreaming of food, let me tell you about this week's local business giveaway provided by Mahalo Shoots and Aloha NFTs. They are giving away an NFT and its physical copy, along with a couple of shirts from their recent drop. Head to Hawaiiverse on Instagram to enter. Stoked for this one. Our guest today comes from the Mānoa Valley here on Oahu. He is a nationally recognized chef, entrepreneur, teacher, hula dancer, husband, and father to 2 daughters. He has also been featured on many news stations, TV shows, and most recently was a star of his very own YouTube video series presented by Toyota Hawai'i. This culturally aware kanaka ties in culture with everything that he does and is an inspiration to me and so many others. His name is Mark Noguchi. Aloha, Gooch. Welcome to the podcast.
Aloha. Mahalo for having us.
Yes.
As you can see, I have our daughters in tow.
Yes, you have Aki and Ellie, right? Do you guys want to say hi? Say hi to the podcast.
Hi.
So
it's a family affair. I love it.
It is. It was the only way that we could kind of hold them all together, through these times. And so Ellie on the backside is our hiapo,
Otis,
and then Aki over here. Yeah, and but they're good.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, Ohana means the world to us here in Hawaii and in a lot of other cultures, and you're all about perpetuating the culture, which I love, and that's why I wanted to have you on the podcast. And it's good to see you in person, because this is only our second time meeting in person.
Pretty much. I think, if I remember correctly, the first time we met was at Kimmy's hale, right? We was cleaning fish.
Yeah, Kimmy Warner's baby shower.
Yeah.
And I just got back from Madagascar, and I remember that day so vividly. I talked about it with Kimmy as well. It was so cool because I just got back from my service, 3 years in Madagascar, and then I went with my sister-in-law, Lei, because she's friends with you guys. And I had no idea who everybody was, because I was away for a while, and I wasn't super into like the diving scene, the local scene like that before I left. So I came back and I was just like, oh, cool, Lei's friend Kimmy. Oh, Lei's friend Gooch. Oh, cool. These people are so nice to me. They're teaching me how to clean fish. You taught me how to blanch string beans.
Oh, right on. I totally forgot.
Yeah, I remember that. But everybody at that party left such a good impression on me. And I remember that. I'll remember that time forever, because it was so cool having that type of communal feel to it, where you're just like backyard style, just like hanging out, talking stories with people. And I had no idea that all the people over there had so many followers on Instagram, did all these cool things in life. They were just uncle and auntie, friends, ohana to me. And I think that was the coolest moment for me.
I think that I wonder if it was a mixture of emotions, right? One is that you finally came home, and you yourself as a kanaka are very, very, I like to say like aina-based, aina face, and you are also a product of the Hawaiian immersion schools, right? Kumuki Alohi is not only a mentor but a hoa to you, and the way that you came and you shared your ike with the Puno students, that was huge. So what I think is, I wonder if it's I don't think it's so much as like, oh wow, these people with is. The social media aspect is to me is inconsequential, right? So much as the fact of coming back, and it'd be different if like you came home and your circle was, like cruisers, just people that would mili, in Waikiki or at a mall or whatever. Yet, your ano sort of magnetized and attracted, the very same people. So I think it was kind of cool that. Yeah, I didn't realize the mission that you had gone on, right? We was there to prep food, right? To prepare for a significant sort of moment, right, for Kimmy. But I remember that day too, as being really cool. I knew that I didn't have a whole lot of time, and the way our schedules run, it's a lot of times it's in fragments of hours. But I think we certainly made the most of it, and meeting you that day, it left an impression as well. And then later on, Kimmy called and we could have shared a little bit about you and what you was doing, and I think that was really cool. Yeah. I look to Kimmy quite often regarding social media and how to navigate that realm, and it's while it's not brand new, it's still kind of new, you know. It's always a learning experience.
Yeah, definitely. It's more so a way to leverage business for me.
Yeah, you can't leverage business or or social capital or your voice, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's easy to complain about social media. However, when used correctly, it's a powerful tool.
I love that. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we have a lot to talk about, but before we get into all of that, I just want to know, where are you from? Where you grad? What was it like growing up? We always got to start at the beginning.
Absolutely.
So, roots.
On our side of the family, I'm the first Noguchi. Actually, my father was the first Noguchi to come to Hawaii from Kyoto, Japan. Small town called Uji. Uji is actually known to produce some of the best matcha, some of the best green tea in the world. And I remember I lived in Japan as a child for a short period of time, and I remember every morning you could smell matcha being roasted. I mean, that was a very vivid memory. At something like probably 9 or 10, if I remember correctly. My mother's ohana was already here, hailing from actually they lived in Nu'uanu for a period of time, and then Mānoa, Hilo. And when I was a teenager, I found myself in Hilo. To be frank, I chased a girl, and then we promptly split up, and then I stayed. And this is
after
94.
After high school.
Yeah.
So
I got my GED. I went to a few schools.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I actually went to Punahou, Roosevelt, Kalani, Kamuki, Assets.
Oh, okay. But you never graduated?
Nope.
Oh, wow.
GED.
I was going to say, because you don't seem like the private school type. And I'm not trying to hate on private school kids, but
I was lucky. I always, some of my fondest memories was a number 6 bus. And I miss like the old Nisei, obachans like that. And they would speak on the bus in this Japanese English pidgin, like, ha ha ha, so desu ne, sugoi, for real. And and as a kid, just loving that. And got the bus and got to meet other kids on the bus. And I always kind of just hung out with the Papakolea and the Palolo kids. It was a fun time, But I also remember, like, especially back then, in neighborhoods, you stuck to your own, right? Especially back then, still, in the 80s. I mean, there was less distractions. So you played with your neighborhood kids. You grew up with the neighborhood kids. And I just got along with Papakolea and Palolo.
You never had any problems because you
totally.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, it was hard growing up. I always joked about how, so Mānoa kids, you grow up hanging out Mānoa Park, you go summertime, you go Mānoa gym, they even coined it like Mānoa gym rats. But I just sucked at like land-based sports, so like soccer and baseball, those are all like sports that like a good towny Kepani boy should do, and I sucked at them. And it was hard, I think I certainly felt alienated. Growing up in a very, very sort of traditional Japanese family too, those sort of challenges become compounded. And I found myself not very happy, growing up. I have no regrets, Kamaka by any means, but was really fortunate. I found DJing, and I was actually one of the youngest DJs in the Honolulu circuit at that time.
That's crazy.
So happy is before social media. I think anyone they hear, there might be 1 or 2 people like, oh yeah, I remember, but I think most people listening are like, they're like, what?
What was your name? Your DJ name?
I was DJ Rerun.
Okay, that was DJ Rerun.
I started as DJ Spaz when I first started, but there's this other brother, good brother, Cutmaster Spaz.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
And then some of our friends, it was DJ Elite, I remember, and then guy I worked for was Joho at Mystical Sounds, and they're like Gooch. And so I had Gooch as a nickname too from growing up. And I was like, bro, you gotta change your name. And then I remember one day I was just said something about what's happening, and then they're like, "Oh my God, Rerun!" And then it was DJ Rerun.
DJ.
I was just cleaning my room, and I found my old tagging sketchbook. I was tripping out.
Oh, throwback.
So anyway, DJing. This girl that I met, Beth from Hilo. I was auditioning, dating myself. I was auditioning at Maharaja.
What is that?
Maharaja was a nightclub in Waikiki, second floor. It was, I believe, it was Studebakers, and then Maharaja, and then the Shack Waikiki.
Okay.
Shack Waikiki was. And frankly, I don't even know if you were born yet, but that's all right.
93. I was one.
And, so I was auditioning. She came up. She requested Janet Jackson If. I remember that. And back in the day when you auditioned for a nightclub, it was the light guy and the DJ had to be very much in tune because you actually would control the lights with this keyboard looking thing. So I was auditioning as the light guy, doing my thing. She came up and requested. I thought I was being smooth, so I asked about if he could play If, and he did, and we ended up talking story all night long and hanging out. Moved to Hilo, or I go to Hilo to visit, and there's something about Hilo that just was like, there's something, I don't get it. And I also realized though at that time that, I was having fun, but I wasn't necessarily doing anything with my life, right? So 17 already, and realizing that's fun, but like something's missing. And I have no clue how it happened, but somehow I decided that I was going to move to Hilo and figure it out. And that, I think that freaked Beth out because we've been hanging out for like a month maybe. She's like, wait a minute, you're moving. You see the process, right?
Wow.
And I was trying to tell her, like, I'm moving to Hilo for Hilo, not for you.
But it's hard to kind of explain
course,
that,
I totally see it, right? And so, move to Hilo.
Sure.
Right, exactly. She's like, hoi hoi. And then, so we split. And I stay. And then try to make the story long story short, and then we end up about a year into it.
No, we on the podcast we want the short story long.
Oh, you want the short story long? Okay, well, it might still be a medium story, but there was a 1994 flood in Hilo. It was, for any Hilo people that remember, 94 was a big rain. It's like 36 days. And I was living in, like the old school plantation homes, the first floor is actually just like 1x2s and it's kind of open air-ish.
Yeah.
So I was sleeping in my friend's, basement, if you will, or the bottom floor. And I pretty much we knew it was raining, and I took a midday nap, and I woke up to seriously my ukulele floating away. Oh, and I was in like 8 inches of water. So I get, flooded out of my place, living out of my van, bounced around. That was an eye-opening time. And I never told my mom, I never told my parents that I lost my place to live. I was shuffling around in my van, made friends with the Suisun guys. Did you know that a big gulp can last you 3 days? Okay? And the only reason why it lasts you 3 days is by the end of the second day, where the bottom of the big gulp cup creases under.
This is the one at 7-Eleven.
Yeah, it begins to leak. So you gotta if you get a big gulp, you can make it last 3 days, but you gotta finish that thing by day 3.
That's funny. The more you know.
Yeah, the more you know. So got to do that. Committed to going back to school, and then during school, I was lucky enough to come across Halal Kekuhi. Right, and this is still the early 90s, mind you, before social media. And I always wanted to hula my entire life, but coming from a strict, Kepani family, my father said that wasn't a choice,
So when you were growing up, what were you required to do by your family?
Suck at all those land-based sports. And even I gotta give, I'm not trying to paint this like doomsday story. I was really lucky. My parents worked their ass off. My father built at that time with the largest private insurance company in Hawaii. Wow. So we had everything that we needed, and they also support. So if you can imagine, right, this kid going, oh, I'm gonna try DJing. It's not like today where a laptop and this little box, right? Back there it was like 2 turntables and a microphone, milk crates of records and all that stuff. I was like a 15-year-old kid hanging out in Waikiki. There's a shop called The Beat. And that's where all the DJs went. And like a young, typical young kid, and just admiring all the older guys. First time that Kevin gave me like a B-side vinyl, wow. You feel like you made it.
So I can't imagine your parents were super stoked on you dropping out of school, becoming a DJ.
And they supported that, right? Because they supported the start of my DJ career while I was in high school. Okay. And I have no idea how I managed to convince my parents that at 14, 15 that they would let me stay out till like 2 8. You know what I mean? I don't get it.
Especially with a traditional
probably like 15,
Asian
16.
family.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think 14, but probably like 15, 16. Guarantee, and I know by 16, like Betty Moy still had her huge Aloha Tower dances, and I hope people in my age bracket listen to this because, if you're from Honolulu, because guarantee you'd be like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But, so anyway, fast forward.
Okay.
Hilo, living out of my van, and then decided to go back to school, find Halal Kekuhi. And it was really cool was, back, they were still taking students like once every 5 years. And was very fortunate to have, my kumu at that time was Kekuhi Kanahele. And I remember her telling me, she's like, Noguchi, are you serious about hula? And I was like, yeah, I am. And she goes, well, if you're serious, I remember this line. Our family, we have a small halal, and if you're serious, we're taking new students. And that was the start of like the rest of my life. Prior to hula, I never cared about anything other than myself. And hula was the very first time that I dedicated myself to something greater than myself.
I love that.
And to understand that, that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
I think everyone goes through their life. Well, I hope everyone goes through their life and they have that, pivotal moment in their life, that life-changing moment that leads to everything else. For me, it was studying abroad, learning about the Peace Corps, catching the travel bug, growing an appreciation for other cultures, which in turn made me appreciate my own culture.
Absolutely.
So that was my moment. So your moment was joining the Halal.
Yeah, my moment was, and I don't think it was, now that we're kind of talking, I don't know if it was joining the Halal as being the moment or being like a year into it, right? And then realizing that there's something about it that drives me, and then also watching like everyone else attrition out for whatever reason. And I can't speak for any other halal because I don't know. I will always only serve one halal. But yeah, the class started with like 60 people. Right, first week, like 20 dropped, and then it just keeps on going. And if I remember correctly, by the time we made it to Olapa, there was probably like 15.
Wow! And can you tell the listeners what Olapa means?
Well, so Olapa is there's Mu'o, A'ali'i, and Olapa, and those are sort of like just the three levels, if you will, that we go through. Starting off from the bottom, and then then gradually becoming like an intermediate dancer, and then at that time we start to become versed and taught in some of the sort of the deeper the manaos and the ike of why we dance and who we dance for. We begin to put together our adornments, our costumes, our kupe'e, and that's when we really kind of start to get into like deep diving into lei. And I was real fortunate to have been mentored by sort of like the last generation of Auntie Edith's haumana, and I had a couple. One of my most profound mentors was Punahele Lerma, and him and his partner Kaipo had this shop called Pool Lane, and it was this beautiful lei shop in Hilo. So, hula took me all over the place. And I remembered when we would tour, noticing how we would always gather on ai. We would always gather on food. And even how the coolest one was we were at Arizona at ASU, Arizona State University, and this Hawaiian family told us they drove something like 12 hours to come watch us perform.
Wow.
And then brought coolers of food, and it was Hawaiian food. It was cracking up how they said they had the poi in the freezer for like 6 months, and they were sitting on all this food, and then it was so happy to share it. And I remember after that performance, something kind of clicked, and it didn't manifest into like a distillation of what it was, and I had no clarity about it until a little bit later, where in Halal Kekuhi. At that time, you couldn't uniki. You wouldn't, graduate to be a kumu unless you're a kanaka ole. Recently, most recently, Auntie Nalani kind of changed that. A few years ago, they had their first series of sort of like elevations. But then, once again, I was like, okay, well, what is your path, right? I knew that hula had given me this definition of this baseline of discipline, this understanding that you are this small piece of something that's greater than yourself. And then as the way things go, right? Because in Olapa, almost everyone has a job that allows them to take off for like 1 or 2 weeks at a time. So most people were teachers. I held like 3 different jobs. I, taught at Lanakila Learning Center. I worked at Borders. I worked up at National Park. I did all kind of stuff. Throwback.
Oh wow.
That allowed me to take off.
Yeah.
So I am helping out one of my good friends, Kule Alfichi. We're at KCC selling T-shirts. He had this T-shirt company called Keikioka Aina. And back in that time, like if you were an educator in the Hawaiian studies system, whether you were immersion or college, like everybody wore his lole. And so we'd go to like educators conference, craft fair, he would just kill. And we're in KCC selling T-shirts.
Did you move to Oahu or you still living
in Hilo,
okay.
right? Flew back just for help on a weekend.
Yeah. And what year was this? Like,
I think this must have been 90. By this time, it must have been like 98 or 99.
Okay, so you're about 4 years deep living in Hilo.
Oh, yeah, deep already.
All in. And were you dancing professionally?
So, yeah, it was already Olapa.
Okay, so that's considered professional.
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
I use that word with hesitation, but I suppose.
Yeah.
At that level, you do what you're told.
Yeah. So did you guys do Mary Monarch and all that?
So hālau kekui, and to this day, I said we don't compete.
Yeah.
We and funny how when you ask that, I still respond we. And I joked it, and I joked about it with Auntie Nalani and Uncle Sig one time, and I said I'm sorry, like I still say, and they were like, what are we sorry for? But for me it'll always be life.
Yeah.
It is life. Remember my buddy during the conference, the buddy came up and was like, hey, how's Paella? How was that was the name of our show. How's Paella? Oh, it's unreal. Talking about this, come out, just talking story. And then out of the blue, he goes, so what are you gonna do next? And I don't know why, but I blurted out and I went, I don't know. I said, I told Kinoi, I'm like, I don't know if hula is forever for me. And I have no clue why. He didn't pause a beat from what I remember. And he was like, hey, you ever thought about being a chef? And I'm like, no. And he goes, KCC has a culinary program. I'm like, cooking school. I'm probably dark school cooking school. I said something real asinine like that. Yeah. And he goes, well, I don't know. He goes, you always cook. You're always cooking around us at parties. Like, you should think about it. So on lunch break, walk down to the building, and I'm walking through it. And I don't remember when it was, but I do remember that class wasn't in session. And as I'm walking down, I see this open door. It says, Counselor Lori Mayahara. Stuck my hand in and say, hey, aloha, how's it? Da-da-da. And ended up talking to her for like half an hour.
Wow.
And in half an hour, she pushes the application across and she goes, Mark Noguchi? She's like, I don't know what's up. She goes, but something tells me this might be good for you. I take the application home and thought about it for maybe a week. And then I thought, why not? What the hell? I'm like, at the very least, I can go KCC for 2 years. I can, I'll be back on Oahu, I'll party it up, and I'll come home and I'll be a better cooker and whatever. And even the wahine that I was with at the time, she wanted to get her master's in Hawaiian, so it worked out fine. She was going to come, we was going to do our thing, and then go back together. And thought about it for a week, and selections for Holo Mai Pele was coming out because that time we had gotten a grant by PBS to document this other showcase that we did called Holo Mai Pele. And selections came out. I made the cut. And then the next day I told Auntie Nalani that I'm going to go culinary school. And she just kind of looked at me. And I remember a couple of my peers were like, wait, now? And something was just like, yeah, no, you do it now. And I remember just bawling. It felt like I was telling someone that I was having an affair. And I just, but for some reason, like I had to. And Auntie Nalani, she pats me on the knee. And she's like, Noguchi, you always got a place. And that was it. No looking back. Then I was really fortunate that when I started KCC, don't forget, I'm a GED. Going to KCC. I remember the first semester, I got like a B plus, and you know what I mean? And I was just tripping out. I called my mom, I'm like, oh my God, I got a B plus. And I realized that there was something there, and that was it. And because of my baseline with Halal, understanding discipline, I chew myself head first. My water life, also in Hilo, I found that I had an affinity for the ocean, and I did much better in like paddling and what and whatever law. And
so you used to paddle down Bayfront.
Kamehameha Hilo, Bayfront, and
then go surf Honolulu
every morning down patrol.
Awesome.
And it was really cool to understand that I excelled academically in something, and also found and really sort of, I didn't think about like national parks or whatever. Even working for like Mehana Brewing Company, like being happy with my hands, being like a laborer, doing labor work. Because mind you, right, don't forget, like if you come up with a really sort of strong Asian upbringing, like you're supposed to go into something. I was being the hiapo of my family, the oldest in my family. I was supposed to take over the family business, and I couldn't. It wasn't in me to do that. And once again, have no clue why, but really grateful that my father and my mom sort of just let me find that path. And it was through cooking and food, and realized that the long hours I loved. I was still, mind you, this is 2000, 2001, still a part of that old school sort of kitchen, pirates out of kitchen, like all the stories you might have heard, they're all true. It used to happen.
Can you give us an example?
I mean, just everything, the screaming, things being thrown at you. I remembered one time the sous chef was at this one restaurant was so upset at me that he picked me up and he threw me on the grill. Yeah, and I just kind of hopped off, and that was, it was just, it was indoctrination, it was trial by fire, and I loved
literally
it.
sometimes.
Yeah, and I was really lucky that I remember, like, even when I went to the continent and I cooked in New York and I came back, and a lot of our friends were just like, "Oh, bro, how was it? Oh, what? Howlies? What? It's unreal." Like, I'm like, guys, like, no, I said it was good. And I tell them the stories, and people are like, "Oh, bro, I would have licked them, would have just smoked them one time." And I said, "Yeah, but that's," I would tell them, like, "Well, that's why I'm cooking and you're not." Understanding that through that process. The people that I worked with, we became tighter, and also because at that time we didn't know any better, right? Now that's completely inappropriate. Like I would never, ever treat anyone like that anymore. But at that time, being a young cook, you are a product of your environment, right? That's all we knew.
Yeah.
But we knew that at the end of the day, when that last ticket was done, service was finished, and once again, it was a brotherhood. It was this family. I remembered our chef, one of my chefs always taught us that, and he's like, it is like this one way, but when you're done, you look out for everybody. Like a Chef Marvel, Chef Kevin would take, Andrew Leif, Pig and a Lady.
No.
Okay, it's one of the good brothers. This restaurant down the road called Pig and a Lady. You should go eat there.
Yeah, I'll go try them out.
But Chef Kevin would take Andrew and I home every night. He'd give us a ride. He bailed a couple of us out of jail, but in the kitchen. Yeah. There was chef and then there was God.
Yeah. Okay, wait. Why bail out? You can't just throw out, he'll bail us out of jail so casually and not explain.
Oh no, I mean that's not you would take, like Chef Kevin was the first person that you would call pretty much for everything, and we had a dishwasher and we had a cook that had to get bailed out, at one time. Wow. And it was something.
So you guys were a pretty tight crew then.
We were tight. Yeah. I think out of every cook hopes and dreams that they have, like that throughout the course of their career, that they have that one kitchen, maybe two, where you knew that at that time and a place, that was by far the most synergistic team that you've ever worked with. And I think that while like Town Restaurant for Ed and Dave was the last restaurant that I worked in, before I went off on my own, and Town was certainly one of the most profound restaurants I ever worked in. Marvel's was that team that we had there. We knew at that time, we were just, everyone was so in tune with each other. You didn't have to say a word, and you ask every single person of that generation that worked under Chef Gammon, you could have dropped us in any kitchen around the world and we would have been fine. Not because we were better than anybody else, but because we were a family unit. When we were all together in that kitchen, we functioned as one living, breathing entity.
Do you think that you had that type of mindset because you were in a halal where everything was so, connected and you had to work together as a team?
Could be. That's a great reflection, Kamaka. I think that, in the way that with hula, you'll stay up till like 2 or 3 a.m. making lei. And even when you're done with your lei, you stay and you're helping you're helping your hoa next to you. In the way that, I'm sure too, right? It's like people think that touring is this amazing experience, and it certainly is, but it's not all, roses, right? It's not all rose beds. There's thorns too, and yet that, I think, wow, mahalo for saying it like that, because guarantee that going through halal at that level is also a form of indoctrination, right? It's also a form of like trial by fire and understanding that you're a small part of a greater movement.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Never thought about it like that, but yeah.
And do you think your cultural experience with the hula and all that, did you think that played a factor in the way you approach food and aina-based things? Did you have that in you? Was it instilled in you at an early age? Because I know you said you wanted to do hula, but you never did hula, but you're always intrigued by the culture, right? So do you think joining the halal, that played a huge factor in your cooking, and the
absolutely.
way you do it?
Absolutely. I used to say that I cook from an aina-based perspective, and I think now, to the credit of cooks and chefs today, there's a lot more of that. But I still think that what makes my perspective of food unique is that the hypersensitivity that I try to keep, the standard that I try to keep for myself, the standard that I try to show for my students and my cooks, is because of hula, and the way that when you dance and then you need to gather for lei, you become hyper aware of your surroundings, right? In the sense that we all find our favorite kukui, or we know what mile marker we have our favorite liko at, right? Or, or forget the ie or the a'ali'i. And I didn't think about until later that the way that I looked at my ingredients was very similar. I made that connection at Town Restaurant. I had never seen this abundance of ingredients come in and out. And mind you, please remember, and even to like our listeners, is that, because I'm sure there's people like, what are you talking about? Like, we get local ingredients all over the place now. Yeah, but not 15 years ago, not like we do today. And so lucky that we have young kanaka and other young adults that have found this love of farming, and the way that we see so many small farms now. But that hyper awareness and the way that I treat it, I started realizing the way that I would treat like a head of local cauliflower was very similar to the way that you would treat liko, and the way that you clean it nicely and you clean it with care, and you don't just disrespect it by leaving it off to the side. I think part of Hilo, I remember being hungry. While I might not look like I used to be hungry, there was a time that I was hungry, and I just was sharing this story of there's something very profound that you never forget. If any of you have ever been so hungry that it physically hurts, you never forget that feeling, and it is this dull throbbing. It's not like an acute pain so much as this dull throb that like never goes away, and you never forget that. So those things, those experiences in Hilo and hula certainly have impacted me on the, in the way that we treat food
I love
You know,
that.
today.
Speaking of food and hunger, I see Ellie's trying to be so respectful and open that,
You want some
that
help?
brownie very quietly.
Thank you, God.
But just go for it. Go for
Go,
it.
go. Yeah, kalamai.
No worries. That's
Oh.
I thought it was so cute. She's just like moving the package so slowly.
You know, I
Ice them.
asked
yeah, we
you
are.
can ask. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Say something to the listeners.
No, not,
Okay.
Now you shy. All right. But anyway, yes. I think that. Thank you for bringing that up. You know, it certainly set the framework for the rest of our life.
Yeah. Hey, you better save some for us. You'll eat all of them. Yeah. That looks good.
Nah, go for it.
Nah, go. Yeah. We go eat after. Yeah. So that's so interesting because I feel like not everybody has an affinity for culture and or has that desire, that iini, to just learn.
Oh, good word. Yeah.
Right? And there's going to be a lot of words that you guys are hearing. You guys just have to look it up.
Yep.
Yeah, this is a challenge to you, to everybody listening. Just go look it up. Go Google hālau, kekuhi, and then all the words that Gooch and I are using. Because, yeah, I mean, I could go on just about hālau or kekuhi and how, renowned that hālau is, right? And the people, the Kanaka Ole family, all these people.
You know, like George Helms said, right? Do your homework. So
Do your homework, yes.
you're not too sure what's going on. You got to do your homework.
Yes. So do your homework. And what was I saying? What was I saying before that? I just definitely wanted to tell
we were
that to the
talking
listeners.
Oh, that's a good question. We totally went off. I don't know. That's all right.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. Okay. All right. So I can't remember what I was talking about earlier, but we have a lot more things to talk about. So can you tell us what is Hawaiian food? I wanna talk about that because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so we'll get into all the food aspect of things, and we can talk about, local food, Hawaiian food. There's a lot of things that people just don't understand. I think there's just not enough education on it. What do you think?
I think it's also changing a few generations of misinformation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when and I've done this many, many times, and I'm pretty sure I will continue to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a very similar way that we work with other companies when they are trying to figure out what their identity is. So if you're from Hawaii, you're gonna know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're not from Hawaii, you'd be like, oh, here in Hawaii, right? We identify ourselves ethnically.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Kepani, you're Kanaka, right? Our friends Filipino, that's Pake, Hole, whatever. Poragi.
Yeah.
On the continent,
Are you Poragi?
I mean, remember? It's pure
just
bread,
pure, yeah,
100%. I know
I just feel like you can talk a lot.
I
and you're like,
gesticulate with my hands. I cannot keep still, so
Hey,
yeah.
You're not Poragi by blood, Poragi by choice.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, love it. So, but on the continent, they identify themselves geographically. Right? I'm a Los Angelino. I'm not Californian. So, for any of us that have traveled out of Hawaii, you probably got that. Hey, you're Hawaiian, and it's like, no, I'm actually Japanese. Yeah, but you live in Hawaii, and so therein lies this ability. It's right, a teachable moment, if you will, to explain on how being from Hawaii doesn't make you Hawaiian. I also, and I don't care, you can fight me all you like about this statement, but I believe it. I don't believe in Hawaiian at heart. You don't hear they're Tahitian at heart, or they're Maori at heart, or they're Californian at heart. When we hear, they're Hawaiian at heart. And I think that's because a lot of times we put so much onus on identification, right? Who we are, what are we, where are we from, what's your function. So without going too far off to the side, that's the start of it, is that being from Hawaii doesn't necessarily make it Hawaiian. Hawaiian to me, and just in my kumu, my friends, my upbringing, if you will, Hawaiian is, it's your koko, it's your blood, it's your genealogy.
Coco over local, you ever heard that?
No, I like that. Coco over loco, nice. So same with food, right? There's pre-Western contact. I love this talking about it. There's pre-Western contact.
I'm
there's
happy you're sharing it.
You know, there is the food that kanaka Maoli ate before Captain Cook, and there is food that we all now eat after Captain Cook. And I was with this wahine a long time ago, and we would celebrate makahiki instead of Thanksgiving. It was really cool, and we would do it. We would invite a few friends over, and we would prepare that was all pre-contact. You know, so no chili pepper water, you know, just limu, pa'akai, you know, so seaweed and salt. There'd be no turkey. There'd be lavalu. You know, we'd cook fish traditionally, you know, in tea leaf. There was kalua pig. There was poi. There's pa'iai. There's kalapa'a. So, gang, there's different ways to eat taro. A favorite that I'm so happy that more people eat now is kalapa'a, right? Just as is, right? You just eat it as it is. And that was certainly a whole lot of fun. It was also a really good challenge, right? Is no beer, right? Obviously, get ava, you know.
Yeah.
And then there's post-Western contact, right? So gang, for those of us listening, like lomi salmon, you know, if you start to look at the genealogy or the origins of lomi salmon, that came about during the shipping trade, where
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. So if you think about it, like salt salmon, right, which came up from up north, like Alaska area, maybe Washington. I'm not too sure. I'm not a historian, but if you were, whether you were like a young kanaka Maoli or if you are like an immigrant and you know you wanted an adventure, you jumped on a ship. But our sense of makana or omiyage, the fact that we always bring things back as a gift to our loved ones, and you're on a ship, what do you bring? You bring back something that is preserved, right? Able to go the distance. So they brought back salted salmon, and that's where it came from.
I felt a little hupo because a little dumb because I didn't even make that connection. Lomi salmon, of course we didn't have salmon in Hawaii.
Yeah. But you know,
but because it's so ingrained to us, like, oh, you eat lomi salmon with lau, kalua pig,
absolutely.
Boy. So it just kind of becomes part of the Hawaiian food.
Plate.
Yeah, the Hawaiian plate.
But we're so lucky to have this time now where we can have these dialogues, and people are like, oh, whereas before, you know, if I were to, you know, give this spiel like 10 years ago, it's kind of like, yeah, okay, you know.
Here's
whatever. Okay, chef.
Radical,
yeah. Okay, chef. Slow your roll. Yeah. But whereas now it's like, oh, I never thought about that. Yeah, you know, Hawaiians didn't grow tomatoes in greenhouses.
Yeah.
You know, that came later.
Wow.
Ni'oi, right? Ni'oi came later, right? Traditional seasonings were pa'akai, limu, inamona.
Yeah, not chili pepper and all that other stuff. Wow.
And even then getting into it, and we talk about seasoning, is how different moku, pa'akai tastes different, right? And it's really cool that kind of food geek stuff was something that was only talked about and shared amongst like my kitchen peers, if you will. But in today's day and age, like choke people get stoked out about learning that kind of stuff. And it's not a new sort of ike, you know, in the sense that it's not a new type of, vision, if you will. The French have a term called terroir. Terroir is aina, land. So when you say like something is the taste of the terroir, it is the flavor of the aina. And so that is in direct relation to like wine grapes. Whereas different regions, you can grow the same grape in different regions and have different outcomes. So if you're really to wine, if you're really understanding of wine, you can, like I have sommelier friends that can drink wine and tell you what region it came from.
Wow.
And I feel like now the same thing about pa'akai, the same thing with salt, is that if you taste enough salt from all over, you can have a general idea. For instance, like mo'omomi salt has a very high mineral content. It's very it's almost pika, spicy. It's so high in minerals, whereas, and then I have some friends that make salt from Kona, that from Otek, the water line that comes up, and that is salty but very clean, right? Because the water comes down from like 2,000 feet and then gets dried up on the surface. So obviously the amount of minerals and impurities are less or different.
Wow.
Are
there salt sommeliers?
I don't necessarily know if there's nothing like a professional position, I think. But when you talk to like some kupuna, like Wally Ito, down Sand Island or Uncle Mac Poi Poi, Molokai. Oh yeah, bro, you get hyperbolic with salt.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's so cool, just talking about the science and chemistry behind food.
Yeah.
It's not so much just like something you put in your mouth. There's so much history. And,
Absolutely.
If you really dive into it, you can really geek out. I would love to just keep talking about this, but we have to get into Instagram questions. About halfway
Wait, you
through the
actually got
podcast.
Instagram questions?
I got some. Yeah. There was a funny one that we're gonna start off with.
All right.
This is from Kana Mahina. They want.
Cool, man.
Okay. You know that person? She wants to know. Ask him how he got his nickname in Hilo. Screaming Sobakawa.
I'm sure that they will tell you another story. The story that I remembered was where were we? Was it Maui? I think we were at the Maui County Fair, and so Kalamahina is Kuleo Fichi, the same brother that I was helping sell T-shirts with.
Okay.
So that's him.
Okay. Oh, cool.
And,
a guy named Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we were,
That's awesome.
So we were at Akain. We were at the fair selling T-shirts, and I remembered I got it. I have it somewhere. Augie T was just getting started, and he was on stage doing his local Barbie skit, and I was freaking dying. It was so funny, not even funny. And somebody was selling Sobakawa pillows, and it was this Japanese pillow stuffed with the soba, the buckwheat. Okay. In Japanese, it's called makura. And that was the type of pillows that my grandma made. And I remember one of our other friends, I think it was Yopa, Paleka. Yopa comes in the corner. Oh, Noguchi, I found your people's pillow. Oh my God. And I'm like, for some reason, I just went off on a tangent. I'm like, freak this. My grandma made that. That thing is so old. How's somebody, capitalizing on this age-old thing? And I think that's where Screaming Sobakawa came from. But the rest of our friends started calling it because if I got a little too festive, articles of clothing would start to come off, and it's just how it happened. And so I think the screaming and the streaking somehow led to the Screaming Sobakawa.
Wow,
that's what I remember. Cool, you can interject later otherwise, but
wow, great question.
Thanks for asking a question from my daughters.
We get into everything on the Hawaiiverse podcast.
All right.
Okay, Kaloa Robinson wants to know, did you spend a lot of time in Waipio Valley, and do you still visit?
I was really lucky to bring my ohana down. Aki was still inside Amanda's opu, but Ellie was already born. Yeah, Waipio was another very important part of my life. We stayed in the back at Ka'ili Opu'eo. For those of us that remember, Anakalakia Franda. And but I did, and so happy I got to take I think a big regret of moving off of Moko Keawe was that I had wanted to give my children the life that I had there. And moving back to Oahu, especially in the capacity of a cook, I had started to regret it and feel that that would never happen. And, obviously Waipio played a huge part. But really fortunate, once again, right, cooking through this Aina-based perspective and opening up Heia Ke Appear and realizing that so many of the people that are taking care of Heia were old classmates and friends. Just saw this way that it kind of all came together. And so, yeah, our girls are growing up in town in Mānoa Valley, but they have this, I'd like to hope that they're growing up with this breadth of, Aina-based knowledge from living in the city, being out country and flip-flopping both.
Mm-hmm. And you're very intentional about having them get out.
Yeah, I do believe that we are, and it's, I can't speak for every parent, but I hope that my girls love this place as much as I do. I hope that they want to have a family here and raise their children here and embrace all the struggles that comes with, living here in Hawaii. So,
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm all for that question.
Yeah, and you've been able to take them to places with you. I mean, just like here on the podcast, you had your Holo series with Toyota Hawai'i. Beautiful series.
They went all over.
I just watched it all again last night. Just binge watched it. So good, and you met some awesome. When I think of guests for the podcast, all I have to do is watch that and just look at all those awesome guests right there. I might have all of them on one day.
I did pinch myself, all those people that I got to do that with. I have long-standing relationships with. I also think that's why I don't think, obviously you think about like, oh, you're gonna do like make a career out of a channel or kamea, but my fire is fueled by our community. Mm-hmm. So being like a TV host or something, I'm really glad I got to like taste it and try those shoes on and see what it was, but I also realized like, yeah, that shoe's not for me. I'll keep my rubber slippers on.
Your olukais.
Yeah, we'll keep my olukais. Yeah, you said it, but
I'm a local kind of guy. I don't think I can afford olukais.
No, neither can I.
It helps when you're an ambassador for them.
Yeah. So anyway, going back to about the people that I got to work with on Holo, and I'm sure you feel the same way. Like we're surrounded by rock stars. Mm-hmm. So, it's those people that help me be a better person, mm-hmm. and so I kind of wanted to tell their story, and so happy that everybody was stoked to do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's kind of what I'm doing with the podcast is meet all these rock stars and have them tell their stories, and
the
more people I talk to, the more I'm inspired. So I'm loving it. So the next Instagram question comes from my Hawaiiverse team. They wanted to know, what is his favorite dish to cook and eat?
Oh, Saimin. That's easy.
Yeah, I actually just watched that one thing you did with, it was, I don't know what segment it was, but you with Roy Yamaguchi.
Oh, yeah.
And you explained what Saimin is. And I didn't know that it was from the Japanese word sai and the word min.
Yeah.
And so what does sai mean?
So Saimin Saimin was a dish that I love. I think it's like a dish that's born out of frugality. Mm-hmm. And while I've had many, many conversations with people much smarter than me about it, I think that what happened was it was our plantation ancestors who had to, who brought things from each culture, min being Chinese for like noodles, right? Mm-hmm. So the Chinese brought that, and then somewhere along the way, somebody thought to throw together a soup, made with like shrimp shells or katsuobushi, which is kepane, and then you begin to incorporate whatever's around, like a kitchen sink, if you will. I think it's one of our quintessential, I almost want to say endemic, because you don't find Saimin anywhere else in the world. You find soup noodles.
Yeah, well, people say ramen, right?
Right, and the ramen from Japan.
Yeah, that's what we would eat at Peace Corps volunteers when we were too lazy to cook.
Just a kind instant ramen.
Instant ramen, yeah.
So just non sequitur, but there is a dish called burai jjigae in Korean. Okay, so army stew, and it's like, you ever had like kimchi jjigae, like kimchi soup? Mm-hmm. So you take that, but when you're done, you throw in a package of instant ramen noodles.
Oh,
it's so good.
Oh, that's a good idea.
It's bomb.
Resourceful.
Yeah.
So Saimin, that's your go-to. Right? So you love to cook it and eat it.
Oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
The girls.
I want to ask you, girls.
Ladies.
What is your favorite dish that your dad cooks for you? Saimin. What about you, Aki?
My favorite is luau stew and Saimin.
Luau stew, awesome. They know.
That's the two.
That's cool.
The two dishes you always find in our house.
You don't work in restaurants anymore, right? Like,
no, we don't.
So how do people get it? How can we try this?
I mean, you gotta get lucky.
Maybe we'll see how to do that.
There. Yeah.
Just drop your address.
You come over to the house and then you get that.
Okay. Oh, great question, Hawaiiverse team. All right, this one's about food too. Molo_Kyle wants to know, what dish gets requested the most from your first gig till now? Has Gooch changed it or still the same?
What is the most requested dish? For events, I think. What is my most requested? If it's a local client, it's like luau or lau. Something with noodles. Almost always. But I think in general, one of when people like call me, hey, we had blank. So the style of lavalu, right? So lavalu is a traditional Hawaiian cooking method, and it is it's when you take like a whole fish, you season it, you wrap it in la'i, tea leaf, and you bury it under charcoal. And that high heat, tea leaf for us is used not just for food, but it's also used in la'au. It's also used in medicine. And for a lot of us growing up as kids, when we were sick, our parents, our grandparents would put la'i, would put tea leaf on our body. And the tea leaf was a great conductor, and it would suck the fever out of you, essentially. And it's real cool. It's like, you put the tea leaf on you, and you know that it's time to change the tea leaf when the tea leaf turns almost translucent. And then when we change it out. So the tea leaf absorbs the heat from the coals and kind of steams and then cooks the fish. So by the time that the tea leaf is completely papa'a or burnt, the fish is done, and then you take it out. Now, from a restaurant perspective, to do like 150 portions like that, you are, no. And so kind of came up with this method, if you will, and I don't think I invented it. I never saw it elsewhere. Maybe someone else will say otherwise, but started to do lavalu like right on the grill, or you put the the la'i and stuff on top of the coals with the portion fish on top. And then when it was almost done, it was papa'an, and with a spatula, we take everything off and then we plate it up.
Does it make that much of a difference in the taste and the?
I still think so. I still think burying it under gives it. I mean, that's lavalu. It imparts a flavor that this other sort of contemporary method doesn't. Yet I still wanted to give the guest the experience of as close to tradition as possible, and at the same time, understanding the limitations that we have when you're pushing out food in that capacity. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, same like doing an imu, right?
Right.
Anyway, it's like every day we don't cook with an imu.
Thank
right?
you.
It's we can't. I mean,
Right.
it's not feasible.
Right.
But for bigger events, we'd like to do it. One to honor our traditions,
Of course.
our kupunas, and then what I'm wondering is even with that when you cook, the pua'a, you put the pua'a in the imu. Does it make that much of a difference cooking it in the imu, the lavalu, compared to the grill
Totally.
or whatever?
Like,
what's it called? The pot, quick pot one.
Instapot? Absolutely.
Instapot.
Not only that, but even some of my Molokai friends brought it up. When you imu pig and then you roast pig, the color is also different. And I also feel that, kalua pua'a has a very distinct smokiness that you cannot replicate anywhere else. We don't use, like for myself, I don't use liquid smoke. I have slow roasted pig, like pork butt, in an oven with la'i and mai'a, and that imparts a particular flavor. It's not smoky. It is what it is. Kalua pig is kalua pig. It is pig that was cooked in a lua, in a pit. Lipstick on a pig is still a pig.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I look at it. So, call it what it is. Truth in menu, right? So even like the lavalu fish, I ran it past my language friends. I ran it past Hilo and Kiloi. I'm like, hey, like, is this okay? Like, still lavalu? Like, are you still on coals? Yeah. All right. Well, yeah.
Nice.
I'm certainly not one to claim that I have the ike for all of this. This is much a guessing game on my part. I believe in strength in numbers, so I feel that the choices that I make are guided by people that I trust, and that's good for me. Yeah.
Cool. Well, great questions, everybody. Mahalo for leaving those Instagram questions.
Yeah.
And
Very cool.
Yeah, so that lavalu, that's your most requested dish.
I think on a large scale, people. I think I think what it is that it's a dish that is not seen a whole lot, right? And so, oh, you had this thing that I heard you like cooked it on top of charcoal, and oh yeah.
Cool.
Lavalu. Oh yeah.
Awesome. So when does your daughter graduate? I'm hoping to get an invite to the graduation party because I'm hoping for some Ono kind food.
When is that?
Some meat kind grind.
Eleanor, do you know what class you are? You're class of 2027.
2027.
Wait, what?
Do you know what year you're going to graduate from high school?
How old is she now?
I think she's like 30. She's going to be like 2031.
That's insane.
And she'll be like
2031. Just to think of
right?
life in 2031.
I'm going to be dead by then. You're going to cook the bread party. Can't even think that far.
We're gonna emu you.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, okay. If we're all alive by 2031,
Oh, it'll be a party.
I'm gonna come to that graduation party.
Yeah. You're gonna be a server.
Yes. I'll be. That's what I was doing at Kimmy's party. I was
With the la'i.
With the la'i. Yeah. Just
So even what we're talking about right now, with that act of with the la'i, right, being the fly swatter, those are such important facets of our culture. You know, in the way that it just happened. We had to about a year ago. We had to do a couple pigs that got donated, and I remembered Kealoha Domingo's kids teaching our girls, you know, how to shred the la'i, how to set it up to chase away the flies, and those are all these like little cultural practice. You know, people talk about like, oh yeah, we're gonna learn how to make, you know, we're gonna learn how to ku'i and every papa ku'i'ai and in a house, and that's important too. But you know, and then what about, like, I always think about, like, what about like the not so, you know, sexy things, if you will, like learning how to, like, the whole thing, process about keeping the flies away, or, you know, how to properly clean and things like that. And those are definitely things that that we try to stress in our holiday.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about the topic of Hawaiianness. You know, like how some people don't always feel very Hawaiian. You know, you could be Hawaiian, but you don't necessarily practice the traditions and the culture. Yeah. And then there's people who aren't Hawaiian, like you, but you're so familiar with the practices and you respect and you live it. Your lifestyle is Hawaiian, right? Along with Kepani and all those other things. That's cool about here, right? We're a melting pot of different cultures. But, you know, some people, they don't feel very confident in their Hawaiian-ness. You know, being Hawaiian. You know, and there's all kind of different categories. You know, like Hawaiian language. I'm confident in Hawaiian language. I went to Kulakaiapuni Hawaiian Immersion School, spoke Hawaiian all my life. We also did the chants, the hulas, all of that. I was a Kolohe kid, so I didn't pay attention to that. I didn't care about that. I like to think I was actually pretty good at the land sports. So that was my main focus, right? Like, how come we gotta oli? How come we gotta hula? How come we gotta go to the back and pick all the weeds in the mala? Like, I don't want to do this, you know? So I kind of just missed out on all of that. So now it's like, okay, if I don't go to the lo'i, if I don't cook Hawaiian food like this, if I don't eat Hawaiian food, am I Hawaiian? You know? I think a lot of us struggle with that identity.
Absolutely. I think it's not just struggling with that identity. Because we're in Hawaii, like, being Hawaiian or living Hawaiian is sort of at the top of our list, right? This is for us as non-Kanaka Maoli. It is our host culture as well as our home culture, if you will. I think that I believe that it is, those insecurities are systemic. You know, I have seen dark-skinned Hawaiians pass judgment on lighter-skinned Hawaiians just because they didn't look Hawaiian enough, right? And then I'm on the outside watching this sort of passive-aggressive prejudice going, and I'm going like, wow, really? You know? And I think it's just because, you know, we try to fight a colonized mindset. We're you know, so many of our hoa, so many of our friends are like, you know, decolonize your mind. Yet, in that struggle to be more of who your ancestors were, I feel sometimes that it's almost it's like a binary decision. You either are or you are not. Now I can get behind that with Coco. You're either Hawaiian blood or you're not. But like how we live, how Hawaiians live as Hawaiians, how we live as people in Hawaii, of Hawaii. There's this, I believe it's not black and white. You know, in the sense that, yeah, you have olelo, you have your strengths, you also have your weaknesses. Everybody does. And in the sense that, for example, with the Mānoa, we needed our warriors up there. And then we also had Hawaiians just as important at sea level, doing all the work that was required for our warriors to be up there. The logistics, right? The digging through legal matters, figuring out how to get food up there, right? The fact that all these thousands of our community members at sea level, the fact that they were not up at the top, does that make them any less ku'e, any less Hawaiian? I don't believe so. You know, we need the entire gamut of our people to be comfortable in their own skin, to do the job that we are required, that is required of us.
So it's almost like a modern day ahupua'a in the sense of not like Mauka takes care of Makai, not just food wise, but just with all these everyday tasks.
Right. But I believe we're heading in the right direction. But I think we need to shed years of not oppression by necessarily someone else, but our own self-oppression, our own insecurities, our own familial trauma that has held us back.
Yeah.
You know, and I also believe that it's a progress. You know, I certainly the things that we sit here today, the things that I'm sharing with you now, I don't think I had the self-confidence nor the knowledge to speak of this ike 6-7 years ago. You know, it has been, to be honest, it's been years of therapy and self-reflection. It's been leaning into with my wife. You know, Amanda's from Springfield, Missouri. Like, let's just get it out there. There was tons of cultural conflict when we first got together on both ends. You know, and realizing that we're all on the same page. We come at it and I am now speaking both about my marriage and about us as a community. We come at it from different angles, right? And it takes a certain amount of maturity and self-confidence to sit across from someone else who you might not agree with what they're saying, but to still actively listen and understand that hopefully at the end of the same day, we all want the same thing. I hope that helped. I wasn't trying to give a PC answer. I do believe that I see those different levels of fighting, you know, of what it means to be Hawaiian. I also feel that, and I'm sure everyone can recognize it, our Hawaiian brothers and sisters that move home after so much and feel that because they didn't grow up in Hawaii, that they gotta catch up in the space of 5 years. They gotta catch up on a lifetime of not being. Saying, nah, you know, it's how come? Why do we encourage that sort of like I gotta be, you know, hyper Hawaiian or whatever? It's no, you moved home, good, welcome home, you know, and you will. Hopefully, you'll learn and absorb everything that you missed out in a childhood over time, if you want it.
I like that. I like to think that Hawaiian, same with hālau, is a mindset, you know? So you said there's not really Hawaiian at heart, right? But I feel like your mindset can be very Hawaiian, whereas that is your lifestyle and you are living in a way that the Hawaiians lived. And I think that is kind of more of how we're progressing in where it's like, okay, you don't necessarily have to have the koko. You don't necessarily have to be in the lo'i harvesting kalo every day. But as long as you have that mindset where you're just like respect each other, know the traditions, know the history, that's still you know, honoring the Hawaiians. You know, that's how I like to think about it.
Cool. Throw another one on there is I like of what you're saying. I kind of look at it as like an indigenous mindset. In other words, that I realized in my travels, in hanging out with other indigenous people from different parts of the world, that Aina-based people, whether you're from Alaska or you're from like, you know, in deep West Virginia, if all you know is the town that you're from, or Madagascar, sure. Indigenous-based people are Aina aware. in whatever language you might call it. And I think there's a certain international commonality about being Aina aware that I found, And so, I can see where you're coming from, and I do agree that it is a certain mindset. Often when I'm asked to speak on, what it means to be Hawaiian or what I think, I preface it like, please understand too that I come at it from a particular frame, frame of view. I came up in the UH system in the early 90s when the Hawaiian language and the Hawaiian studies programs were really just gathering steam again, right? Almost like the second renaissance. I remember people talking about the early 90s, about it being the second renaissance, if you will. And so I was really fortunate to hang around with some of the very kanaka that we look at as leaders today. And I had amazing mentors, amazing friends and peers, but that had a very specific mindset on what it was, And I think that ku'e-ness is what allowed us to be able to have this dialogue today without it degrading into a screaming fit,
Yeah. I believe there's a lot of things that are, innate in just our nature for like being Hawaiian. Like, I have this connection to the land. I don't know where it's from. Like, maybe it's just like, that's just how I grew up, right?
Yeah.
Every time somebody throws a piece of opala on the ground, I'm like, oh, that hurts.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just
but
innate.
You unconsciously pick it up.
And that's what's really cool about our culture. But it's also cool how people can learn it, and as long as you're open-minded to the idea of trying to not be us but be like us and respect it in a way that's
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Don't need to be like
Well, that's so that's
Yeah.
what I reflected on when I was in Madagascar, is that here I am living in Madagascar for the first time in my life. I'm a haole. I'm not a local. Right? We live our whole life over here being the local, seeing tourists come in and be like, oh, look at that stupid haole trying to talk like us, wear our clothes, eat our food.
Yeah.
And then I'm in Madagascar and I'm like, oh wow, I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm saying Mānoa, I'm saying salama, I'm eating their ravitutu, I'm dressing just like them. I'm like, I'm not doing it to be disrespectful. I'm doing it because I don't want to be them. I want to be like them to show that I respect them. So I think that's the mindset that I like to, try to share with people. And it's funny because being Hawaiian, all these things, everybody can have a different definition of it, right?
Yeah.
To me, this is how a Hawaiian should be. To you, it could be something else.
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing. But also, it's very confusing because, like you said, the second Renaissance, even if you just think about like the 70s when Hawaiian was reinstated as an official language, that's still so new. That's 50 years.
Yep.
We're still trying to figure out who we are. Where do we fit in this, quote unquote America, in this new era of Hawaii. So I think it's still so new. So maybe we should be a little bit easier on ourselves and others.
It's also the fact that I think it's just human nature, right? Is we thrive on results quickly.
Instant
gratification. It takes a little more effort to take like the 30,000 foot view or take the long view. The way I kind of look at it is the way that I kind of, when I get impatient, whether it's in food or the progress of food or our culture or whatever it may be, or even my professional progression, I always stop and like, okay, wait a minute. We got here in X amount of years, right? We got here in our lifetime. The ole, e iho ano luna. Okay, when we were in college and we would do that, in my head in college, I thought someday this will be, right? Someday my great-grandchildren will get to see this. When you look at the fact of what us as a community we were able to do up on the Mauna, what we are able to do with events like even with Red Hill or simple matters of like education, we got to achieve all of these gathering moments. We got to have these victories, regardless of how large or small one might perceive it to be. We got to do all of that in this generation. And that, I think, is something to applaud.
Yeah.
And those are those moments that if I get impatient, I try to think, wait a minute, we got this far in, in the decriminalization of marijuana, in the getting plastic bags banned.
Yeah.
Like little things like that. Right?
Yeah.
Why in the big picture might seem inconsequential, I think those are still very, very good wins for for our community.
Yeah, that is true. I guess we have to make sure that we remember the small victories.
Yeah.
It's all about the little.
And they all add up.
And they all add up. Yeah, I mean, like, look, I got my reusable utensils. 5 years ago, I would not have.
Perfect example
Yeah.
of putting our culture together. How many of us walk around with water bottles and have learned how to weave that net, right, to carry it around, right, which is that upena weave, which is a very traditional thing, is now used to carry around our water bottles, or all of our friends at Ulana that have lauhala, water bottle covers, if you will. Like, that's really cool. The fact that in today's, yes, we all know, like, some lay practitioners that put together the most interesting foliage for a lay or a lay po'o. We got like 20-something-year-olds all walking around looking like, Loyal Gardener and Monarch. But regardless, the fact that lei and papale is a normal adornment once again, right?
Yeah,
like, that's cool.
It is cool. Yeah.
I'm
getting chicken skin.
Right. We used to. I remember seeing lauhala only at luau or events, and
or just the mat, right?
or just the mat,
just the mat,
exactly. And I see all kinds of people with with it every day. Like, that's cool. That is a resurgence of culture. One could say, but there's like non-Hawaiians doing it. Okay, yeah, sure, but so
At least they're doing it.
at least they're doing it, right?
But there's a fine line between cultural
Totally a fine line.
appropriation
Exactly,
and
exactly. If I
respecting
see
the
you,
culture.
if I see someone trying to get lauhala papale into like Costco or something, we got a problem. But I still think there's something to be honored about the practice.
Okay, cool. Going off of that, kind of in the realm of sustainability, and kind of going to our traditional practices such as harvesting kalo, catching our own food, all these things, which isn't a foreign idea, and it's not just a Hawaiian thing, catching our own food, whether that's hunting or fishing, that's how we grew up as humans, right? We've gotten so far off of that, where I think we'd last about 2 weeks if all the ships stopped and didn't come to Hawaii, right? How important is it for us to plant, grow, cultivate our own food when it's so much harder than just going to the store and buying something? I could go to Costco wholesale, get all these things, 30 minutes, if no more line, I'll be out at my house, I can cook whatever I want. It's the convenience, right? How do you choose that over the hard work, getting dirty, getting your, huli kalima ilalo?
Aye.
How do you choose that over that?
So you mentioned the word convenience. So what makes going to the market convenient?
It's close.
Okay.
For the most part, you go to the closest one near you.
Okay.
Hopefully it's a local one. The food's already there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's grown. And it's probably cheaper than buying it from the farmer's market at some places. I could be wrong on this, but this is just coming off the top
it's
of
all
my
good
head.
stuff, yeah.
What else makes it convenient? I can park my car and just walk right into the store and grab a bag or a box and just take it into my house and then go to my house and cook it. And I know it's usually cleaned or whatever. It depends. Like if I'm getting fruits and vegetables, it's prepackaged, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. Or you can even buy stuff that's already prepared and cut up, right?
Right.
Makes it even more convenient.
Right.
So stuff like that.
Okay. Convenience. It was probably convenient because you got in your car and you drove down, right, to the market. You drove down the hill, whatever, got on your bike. So then let's take that out. So you don't have a car, you don't have a bike. Then we start to lose a little bit of the convenience because now you gotta walk, right? You gotta hop by your stuff
Catch
to
bus.
and from, catch bus, whatever. Then you say it's cheaper. Okay. What? And then my question would be like, well, then what is when you talk about a kala, when you talk about money wise, like what was expensive about growing it? Then you kind of keep on going forward. The reason why I bring these things up is not saying that you're wrong, but it's what we perceive to be the more convenient thing. People feel that growing your own food is harder because we're not ma'a to that, right? But at one time, whether it's, and it's probably just because our parents took us with them to the market, we had to learn how to shop at a market at one time or another, right? It's more expensive. It's more expensive at a farmer's market than it might be, at a supermarket. Or a paha, perhaps. So then I'm going to throw these other things out there.
I'm loving it. Keep going.
Potatoes might be 99 cents a pound at Safeway. I don't even know. I doubt potatoes are 99 cents a pound. I'm not too sure. Yet, how much of that money stays in Hawaii? So you can buy kalo or uala for $3 to $4 a pound at a farmer's market. Okay, you're saying that it's cheaper for you, but was it cheaper for what is the cost to our aina, to our land? Is the way to look at it, right? Whereas when we shop at the farmer's market, hopefully the money that we spend goes back to our community. And as far as like growing things, in my experience working with people, a lot of people feel that you need a lot of space. I don't have the space. I live in a condo. Do you have a lanai? Yeah. Is your lanai about 6 feet long? Yeah. Well, then you can have like 2 windowsill baskets 2 feet long, and and you don't need to. I don't think people need to grow. Like, we don't grow everything that we eat. We do our best to grow, and I think it's the practice of cultivation that keeps us kind of aina aware. You know what I mean? Not everyone's going to want to be a farmer. But you just kind of got to lean in and try. I hear it all the time. Oh, I kill my plants all the time. Like, I've tried, and I just forget about it. Like, okay, well, that's cool. Like, then that was your experience. I'm not going to tell them you didn't try hard enough. Like, I'm not trying to beat somebody down about trying. But I will say, like, for those that give it an honest shot, growing a little bit of your own food will surprise you. I'm not going to say it's easy. You're going to have to learn. For myself, it is a constant lesson. Kilo Domingo always said that hālau is a lifelong relationship. And it certainly is. I remember at our old house, the first year that we planted our mala, kalo was beautiful. They weren't huge. The kalo wasn't huge, but the plant itself was gorgeous. The lau was beautiful. Second season, I learned something. Yep, I fed my soil. I reconditioned it to get it ready. I brought limu from pipeline and mixed it in, and I put in the chicken manure and the fish emulsion, all that stuff. And but still yet, it didn't. The kalo didn't. The plant itself didn't thrive as much. And then in learning about it, well, I really should have let my ground rest a little bit longer. Could have rested another week. Limu could have broken down. Salt probably had something to do with it. Like little things like that. And rolling into the third year, boom, we had to move. So now we're back in Mānoa. I need to learn my soil all over again, right? I need to observe and understand. And so I have kalo in pots that I would love to get in the ground, but I'm trying to figure out, like, where's the sun? What's our weather like? And luckily enough, where we live is perfect for kalo. But we have busy lives. We have 2 kids, animals, jobs, and I say jobs multiple. We wear multiple hats, the both of us. But we've committed to putting in the effort and trying to learn. And so, that's what we do, and we just make it a part of our daily routine. Do we fail? All the time. But do we learn? Every time. Yeah. And that's what I think is what you just told me about how you feel about going to a market. It's extremely valid. I don't necessarily think that one is more convenient than the other per se.
It's how you look at it.
It's how you look at it, right? And isn't that how everything is? Yeah. Everything that you and I have talked about, perspective is key. For the past hour, essentially, you could distill this entire conversation down to,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think we say we value our time, and yet we say we don't have enough time, but we're watching TV shows and movies. We're on TikTok for an hour, and we're saying, oh, I'm too busy to plant my own food. I'm too busy to start my own garden.
I wish I had more work-life balance.
Yeah, so it's really just about priority. What is a priority to you?
One more thought and I just said it, so I wanted to touch back on it, is there's this discussion of work-life balance. Amanda and I, we don't really believe in that. There's work, which is a part of your life, and being adults, we have made cognizant choices in everything that we've done. Hopefully, we chose to have a family. So as stressful as sometimes it is, we chose those two hellions behind me. We wanted that very much so. So you make that a part of your life. When we need to travel for work, we try to pencil in like one day at least to downshift. So we often call them like workations because we don't really go on vacations. It just I don't recall us ever like taking a vacation. Also because I don't like to go someplace and just be an ornament. You know, I don't like if we're gonna go someplace, I gotta have a function. It's just how it is. Yeah. And then also by like day 2 or 3 of not having kuleana, I start to get anxious. And, you know, I don't know, it's just me. But it's not like we're not searching for that. And I think that the hard part about it, especially in Hawaii with the cost of living and everything, is when you're constantly searching and trying to find that balance, you have missed out on your entire journey. Right? So perspective. Once again, it's perspective.
Yeah.
We work our ass off to be able to provide us time and a life for our children. Right? Nice. And that's what it is.
So work-life balance, you don't believe in that. You think everything's just kind of already part of your life.
And you said you just got to prioritize what's important.
And prioritize, yeah. So would you say you're happy, you're content with everything? You're not like super stressed at like, because everybody talks about work-life balance as like, you know, you have to take time for your mental health. You need to, you know, surf or do whatever makes you happy. And that's how you balance your work and like personal life. Yeah.
You know, we, for my wife and I, we know that time to ourselves is important. Now, pre-keiki, you could say that the amount of time that you need to feel better is a week. I don't know, just say a week. Well, when you have kids and all that stuff, taking a week is pretty hard, right? So if you're okay, I need, like for myself, I figured out if I can give myself like 4 hours a week just to myself, I'll make that okay, you know, and I will honor that time in whatever it is that I do. And then, you know, like going back to perspective, you know, it's yeah, I guess it's all perspective, if you will. It's when we look at it and constantly talking about always checking in. If there's one thing that my wife and I do is we always check in each other. You know, how you doing? You good? You know, you're right. And we don't always sit around and have hour-long conversations. One thing that we try very hard to do is, and I'm talking about etching out the time, is I do my very best to get the coffee ready in the morning. And so if Amanda and I have 5 minutes to sit down next to each other, even quietly, and have a couple sips of coffee before we hit into high gear, that's good. You know, it is what it is. You know, and we appreciate that time.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's really just about shifting your mindset then, where it's like that 5 minutes is gold. And instead of like, I only have 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes.
That's right.
Yeah.
The 3 minutes that you spent bitching about only have 5 minutes. You lost 3 minutes. Yeah, exactly. You only got 2.
Yeah, that's why perspective is a luxury to me. I think that's what makes everything is rich.
Nice one.
Because
perspective is a luxury.
This is what I thought when I was in Madagascar. When I was living in a rural community, no nice houses, brick houses, mud houses, like, you know, very poor. There's no convenience store. You go to the market and you buy food from the farm. You bargain. You get that. So, and I was thinking, why is everybody so happy? How come they're willing to give so much? And I was thinking, okay, I go into say we live in Hawaii, right? And our house is messy, you know, it's not as nice as other houses. We're also like, oh, sorry, you know, we feel embarrassed. Like, oh, sorry, my house is messy. It's not like a nice house, you know. Maybe we don't say it's not a nice house, but we're kind of, you know, self-conscious.
We always say sorry for the mess.
Yeah, and especially in Hilo, you know, it's like, you know, we have older style houses. And I live in Hawaii Kai with my grandma right now. It's nicer over there. But in Hilo, I'm like, I don't always want my friends to come over because my house isn't as nice as them. In Madagascar, there's none of that. I would go into the ugliest, rundown places. People like, hey, come in. Like, Mandrusu, come in. I'm like, cool. And they never say, oh, sorry for the mess. Sorry, my house is so ugly. It's barely standing up. And it's just because their perspective is different than ours, where they're like, I don't need a mansion to be happy. I don't need all these things to be a good friend to you. It's really just the perspective that they have and what we have, because I saw this. We're running a little long, but I love this conversation. I saw the poor man isn't the one who has the least. The poor man is the one who wants the most.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, so it's like they're happy with what they got over there. You know, I'm happy with what I have here. I don't need a $100,000 car. I don't need a mansion on top of the hills.
Yeah.
You know, I'm happy with what I have, with what Hawaii provides for us, with my ohana, my family and friends, and that's what makes me happy, and that's the perspective that I have, which is what the Malagasy people inspired me to have.
That's good. You know, that's good. That's great, Kilo. I love your perspective on that. You know, I try. It's an automatic response almost time to be like sorry for the mess. But for the past few years, I've tried very hard to like not say that. Like all of our homes are messy, and mess it's relative. You know, what one person's mess is different than another. The last thing I just wanted to bring up was the word content. You said, "Are you content?" I'm very much happy. I don't, and you know, anyone can argue the point. I don't like to use the word content. You know, content is this sort of act of satiation, like, oh, it's good, you know. But I think that in my head, I can always do better. I could always do more. Now, does that mean that tomorrow I'm going to be more intense, more, more, work faster, whatever? No, not necessarily. But to me, always remembering that you can do better, that every day you can do better. It's a way to kind of fuel the fire, you know. And so I am very much. And people ask, are you content? I'm like, no. But mind you, when I say I'm not content, it doesn't mean that I want more.
Or you're not happy.
Right. Yeah. I'm extremely happy.
Oh, I love that you said that. That's so funny you said that, because I said that word a couple of days ago, and I was thinking of that content. Yeah. I'm just like, content also is kind of like stagnation, right? Where you're just like,
could be.
I'm happy here.
What is official?
But I was thinking, like, you could be happy, and it slipped my mind. It's just we're so used to saying that word content, right? But I'm just like, yeah, you can be happy, but like, am I content where I am at with our business, with the podcast? No, I want to have thousands of followers. I want to be the best podcast in Hawaii. So I guess I am not content. So I think we have to stop throwing that word around so loosely.
Or, funny, I just learned something.
Okay.
So as an adjective, content means in a state of peaceful happiness.
Oh.
Certainly so. As a verb, satisfy, nothing would content her. As a noun, a state of satisfaction. So perhaps the way that I've been looking at the word content means like I'm like happy where I am, which I guess is not necessarily a bad place to be per se. Not that don't think I'm going to change the way that I think, because obviously I've felt that content was a particular definition for a while. I'm glad we brought it up.
Yeah,
I just learned something new too,
Yeah,
but I still believe it. It's being happy with what you have, but always knowing that you can do more, you can do better.
Yeah. That's funny. I was thinking about that. Yeah. I'm very introspective. I think I'm very reflective.
Good for you. And that will only continue as you get older.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about growing up. Besides the fact that you have to pay for your own dental insurance and medical insurance, it's the worst thing about growing up. All right, so we're coming to the end of the podcast. I just got a couple more questions. What is one thing you wish people knew about you that they don't necessarily know?
Oh, good one. I'm actually kind of an introvert.
Oh, you seem very outgoing.
Yeah, I'm actually a selective extrovert, and for those that know, have know me from a food perspective. So behind the table, if I'm serving you, I can be the most outgoing person in the world. Part of it is that's my job, and I do my job well. When you get me on the other side of the table, like when my wife, kind of brings me around and wants me to mingle in the crowd, I have a hard time sometimes. And when we don't have to do that kind of stuff, I'm more than happy just staying at home.
Yeah.
So maybe that's one. And I'm sure that there would be tons of people that would, call bullshit, but I consider myself like a selective extrovert.
Yeah, that's awesome. I consider myself the same. I'm a homebody. I gotta always hop on social media. Hey, what's up, guys? Check out the podcast. I do these things, but that's why I love the podcast, because it's a one-on-one conversation. And
True.
I love one-on-one conversations over crowds. I don't like crowds. I don't like being around a lot of people. I will do it, because just like you said, it's a job.
It's a job.
Yeah, but if I had to choose, I would be at home watching basketball, football all day.
Nice.
So yeah, that's really. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. All right. This is a new segment of our podcast. We're going to be asking this to all of our guests. What is one life hack? And you got one.
What is one life hack? Yes.
And your girls are going to help out.
We, ladies, so one thing that we have taught that I stress with our girls, and also something that I work with both employees and students on, is a concept of, if you want to get better at something, do it deliberately, do it with intent. And so it's a very simple saying. And ladies, so slow is smooth,
Smooth is fast.
slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. In other words, you do it one way repetitively with intent, and you will get better at it. It's the same way if you watch like a really good bartender, and the fact that they put that bottle back in the exact same place every single time. They wipe their counter at a particular time every single time. They taste their drinks, and they set it up. They set up their station a particular way. They didn't get that fast overnight. They got there by doing it the same way over and over and over again. So
Love
slow
that.
is smooth, smooth is fast.
Yeah,
That's my life hack to share.
Yeah, awesome. Love that. Okay. Last one. Favorite local places to eat?
Favorite local places to eat. So this is my chef tour. Whenever chefs come in, took Bourdain on the same thing. There's Ethel's, Alicia's, Palace Saimin, Helena's, Hailei's.
Okay. Those are all good places. I think I've been to maybe 2 out of 5 or however many you mentioned. But I'll go check those other places out.
Those are, they're a testament to our culture. And that's what I think. And so
they're Chef Noguchi approved. Like Michelin star.
They're Chef Gooch's favorites. Let's put it that way.
Awesome. Okay. Oh, and before we end, we gotta ask you, what is your legacy that you want to leave? How do you want people to remember you?
Yeah, so to make sure that if people are like, Mark Noguchi, oh yeah, bro, I was a good guy. Oh yeah, bro, he did work. It's I've said it before, but this is my life mantra. So when I die, that my wife said I was a good husband, that my children said I was a great father, and that our lahui said that I didn't waste space. And that right there, I'm telling you, I think about that every day.
Love that. That's awesome.
Mahalo.
Yeah. Well, mahalo, Gooch, for coming on the podcast. This has been such a fun episode. I wish we could talk for 2 more hours.
No, mahalo
the
for having
Fonagi in me
me.
doesn't want to end this, but we have to end it.
All things must end to start something new. Right?
Yes, definitely true. Did you want to say any last words before we close the
No,
podcast?
just, mahalo to everyone that tuned in, and mahalo to everyone that either shared Ike or will be sharing Ike. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful to hang with young professionals. To share this kind of space, it invigorates me. It reminds me that in regards to like my life goals, that things are being achieved. So thanks.
Awesome. No problem. Well, maybe one day in season 94 for in 2031 after the grad party that we eat all our food. We'll have another episode.
We'll have
part
another
two.
episode. Sounds good.
All right. Well, mahalo, Gooch, for joining us on the Hawaiiverse podcast. Check us out on Hawaiiverse.com, the best place to support local. Spread aloha, be kind to one another, and mahalo for listening to us today.
Right
New
on.
episodes every Thursday, so make sure you follow us and leave a review. I'm your host, Kamaka, and you'll hear me next time on the Hawaiiverse podcast. Hui ho.
Hui ho!
Say bye, girls.
Ahoy ha.